Let's take a look at the kinds of things someone with a scientific mind might find objectionable, might raise the hairs on the back of their neck if they saw these things in a self-help book. So, what are the things that make scientists go wild? Number 1. Make outlandish claims with no scientific evidence to back them up. If a self-help book claims that it can cure illnesses, help you to lose weight, stop smoking, increase your self-esteem, and cure depression, that's when I start to get a little queasy in my stomach about that particular book. As the expression goes, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. So making extraordinary claims is the first thing that makes scientists queasy. Number 2, self-help books that depend on anecdotes and testimonials. Anecdotes, stories about successful people, make for interesting reading, but there's a serious flaw. People like to take credit for the things that went well in their life, and that, of course, is part of the self-serving bias. So it's messy, right? So not one of the things that's going to convince a scientist that this is a good self-help book. The third thing that makes scientists queasy would be when a self-help book mentions everything happens for a reason and nothing happens by chance, or there's no such thing as luck. Who really knows if everything happens for a reason? The worst are when someone says something like, well, it's a good thing you missed that plane because the plane crashed. So I guess it's not such a good thing that it happened to the people who actually made the plane. But then you can always say, yeah, but there's a reason for that too. I mean, you can never argue with someone who's going to claim that everything happened for a reason, because they can always find a reason for anything that happened. It's pretty mushy thinking there. Reason number 4, propose solutions that are too simplistic. Now here are the ones that really irk me, and that would be happiness is a choice. Or thoughts are habits, and you just have to change your thoughts and you'll change your emotions. You know, there's a kernel of truth to all this, that you do have to look at your thinking. But to say that happiness is a choice, if you take that at face value, and let's say you're not very happy and you hear this, and you're trying, but you're having real troubles making yourself feel better. Something like this could actually make you even feel worse, because if it's that easy, why can't I do it? What's wrong with me? It's just too simple. All right, so too simplistic. Reason number 5, make unfalsifiable claims. I create my reality. I create everything in my life. You succeed or fail because of your thoughts. How can you be wrong? Do you create your reality? It depends on how you define reality. I don't know. It's very, very mushy. Number 6, when self-help books contain no references or citations at all. I'm looking at a book by Christopher Peterson called A Primer in Positive Psychology. In the back, he has, count 'em, 50 pages of references to research. There is plenty that has been done to find what is it that makes people happy and not so happy. So a book without references really makes you wonder. Number 7, reference something that is not measurable. Familiar here are the law of attraction, the law of abundance, the law of prosperity, or forces in the universe. Now, I don't know how you measure any of these things, don't know if they are measurable, but let me give you an example. There is such a thing as the law of gravity. Now, you can't see that either, but you can measure its effects. Gravity works in very consistent ways, but I don't know about those other quote-unquote laws. Number 8, make statements that can result in the potential for blaming the victim. When we believe that thinking in a positive way will be more effective than thinking negatively, that's fine. If we go a little bit too far with that, though, and we see people who are unsuccessful in life, there could be a tendency to blame that person. Well, that person just didn't have the right attitude, didn't think positively enough. We can blame other people for their circumstances. And when we do that, that's a problem. I know that we don't like to admit to this, but you know what? As Harold Kushner told us some years ago, sometimes bad things happen to good people. Number 9, making references to authority figures. The Buddha, Christ, shamans, ancient priests, and claim that they all agree with you. It's good when respected historical figures, Aristotle, for example, it's good when you can quote them. It's also, however, somewhat suspect. I'm sure that these famous people said some really good, insightful things, but we can also hide behind them. So is the author of the self-help book quoting the Buddha just because he or she doesn't have any real evidence for what they're suggesting, but they want to make it seem like that by referring to someone who's well known? Number 10, contain pretty ordinary advice. But your advice pretty much comes down to work hard. Well, that's fine. It's good advice. I don't know that couldn't be found elsewhere. But you don't need to refer to laws or forces in the universe to point out that that's just good advice. Scientists prefer what they call parsimony, which is the simpler explanation, is probably the better one. So anyway, containing pretty ordinary advice and wrapping around it all kinds of things that make it seem like it's extraordinary advice would make a scientist suspect. Number 11, anything having a slick salesman appearance makes us a little bit suspicious. If you go to the book's website and there are offers to purchase additional material, to subscribe to things, anything like that has a certain snake oil association to it. Number 12, misrepresent psychology to the public. Now here's another quote. It's a fundamental law in psychology that you get more of whatever you focus on. Unquote. Now, first off, there are only 2 laws that I'm aware of, and I've studied a good deal of psychology, and those would be the Weber's law, which is a law that has to do with psychophysics, and the other one is the law of effect, which was coined by Edward Thorndike, and has to do with the basis of behaviorism. There's nothing mysterious about them, plenty of research to support them. The other way that these books misrepresent psychology to the public is in suggesting that psychology is really all about thinking positively. And psychology is, as this podcast tries to show, psychology is about a lot of things, not just about therapy. Right? It is about all kinds of different aspects of human behavior. Number 13, overemphasize the role of your thoughts. Your thoughts might be a symptom of some other problem. To focus on thinking is to miss the fact that perhaps the thoughts are not the cause of the problem. And also, of course, there's a whole biological orientation that the negative thinking is a result of biochemical imbalances. Human behavior is very complex. That's why to suggest that focusing on your thoughts is going to cure all of these things is overly simplistic. There are some serious mental illnesses like schizophrenia, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, suggesting that having a more positive outlook is going to cure these kinds of serious illnesses is naive at best.